If you think weddings are just about love, flowers, and fairy tales, think again. This one ended with federal agents, exposed lies, and a groom who turned pale mid-toast. But before I tell you the one sentence that brought the whole room to a standstill, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't even think about clicking away. What happened at my sister's wedding? You'll want to hear every second. My name is Bianca Valente, and I never wanted to be the center of attention, especially not at my sister's wedding. But there I was, standing in a luxury ballroom, heels glued to the floor, while 200 guests stared at me in stunned silence. Their forks hung midair. The string quartet had gone completely mute, and Daniel Vasquez, the groom, still held his champagne, glass frozen mid-toast, his smirk fading into something pale and cracked. He had no idea I knew. No idea I had seen the wire transfers, the forged documents, the trail of lies. No idea I had already handed everything over to the Securities Regulation Bureau, and that the warrant for his company was being finalized as he bragged about quarterly profits over foie gras and crystal flutes. And he certainly didn't expect me, Lara's quiet older sister, the one he always mocked, always underestimated, to stand up and destroy him with just one sentence. But before we get to what I said, you need to understand how it got to this point. Lara is 3 years younger than me, wild-hearted, optimistic, the kind of girl who trusts too easily. Growing up, I was always the protector. I braided her hair before school, defended her from bullies, whispered her through heartbreaks. I wanted nothing more than to see her happy, and for a while, she was. When she met Daniel, her boss at Vasquez Capital, she believed she'd found her fairy tale. A rising star in finance, charming, sophisticated, powerful. Too powerful. From the start, something felt off. But every time I brought it up, Lara would laugh. "You worry too much," she'd say. "He's not like that, except he was exactly like that, and that's how I learned." Sometimes silence causes more damage than the truth ever could. Lara met Daniel at a company networking event, just 2 months after joining Vasquez Capital as a marketing associate. At first, she only mentioned him in passing. "He's brilliant," she'd say. "So intense, but in a good way." I wasn't impressed. I'd seen too many men like him during my time in financial oversight. Men who talked fast, smiled wide, and always seemed to climb the ladder 2 rungs at a time. The kind who left others cleaning up the mess they made behind closed doors. But Lara was dazzled. Within 6 months, they were officially dating. She gushed about weekend getaways, champagne on rooftops, late-night brainstorming sessions that turned into candlelit dinners. It sounded more like a romantic movie than a real relationship. I tried to keep my concerns to myself. She was in love. What was I supposed to do? Be the bitter older sister who ruins everything? Then she told me they were engaged. It was during Sunday brunch, her hands shaking with excitement as she showed me the massive diamond on her finger. "He proposed in Paris, B," she beamed, "on the balcony of our hotel suite with fireworks in the distance." I smiled, but something inside me twisted. "Isn't it a little fast?" I asked gently. "You've only been together 8 months. "When you know, she replied, her eyes glowing. "He gets me." That was the first moment I felt something deeper than doubt. It was dread, because what Lara saw as love I recognized as a performance. Daniel didn't just want her, he wanted control, and I was about to become a threat to that. The first time I saw Daniel's mask slip was at their engagement dinner. It was held at an upscale rooftop venue, all glass walls and city lights. I wore my best dress and my most polite smile, determined to give him a real chance, for Lara's sake. But from the moment I walked in, I felt like I was being watched, measured. Daniel greeted me with a handshake and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Bianca, the government agent herself," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Still chasing spreadsheets and red tape?" I laughed politely. "Still making sure people follow the law." He raised his glass. "Well, thank God we live in a country where people like you keep people like me honest." It was a joke, but the kind that says more than it means to is The night went on. He dominated every conversation. Every time Lara spoke, he either corrected her, finished her sentences, or brushed her off with a laugh. Her friends noticed too. I caught Melanie, her maid of honor, rolling her eyes. Natalie, her college roommate, leaned over and whispered, "Your sister deserves better." Then came the biggest shock of the night. Jason Delgado walked in, my ex from university. We hadn't spoken in years. "Jason," I asked, startled, "what are you doing here?" He looked awkward. "I work for Daniel now. I'm in the investment strategy division." My stomach dropped. Jason had always worked in compliance, not high-level investing. Something didn't fit. When I asked Lara about it later, she brushed it off. "Daniel says he's brilliant, recruited him personally, but the puzzle pieces weren't lining up. Jason being there felt wrong, forced, like he was placed inside a story that wasn't his, and my gut was starting to scream." A week before the wedding, I started losing sleep. The feeling wouldn't go away, that something was wrong. I buried myself in work, hoping numbers and audits would distract me, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lara walking down the aisle toward a man I couldn't trust. Still, I said nothing, until the rehearsal dinner. It was held at an exclusive waterfront restaurant, elegant, expensive, and tense. I noticed I was seated far from the head table. Again. I gave my toast, short, heartfelt, and Daniel didn't even look up. He checked his watch 3 times in 5 minutes. Lara didn't notice, or maybe she was pretending not to. Later that night, I stepped into the hallway to take a breath and overheard something that stopped me cold. 2 voices. Low, urgent. Daniel and his business partner, Lucas. "She's asking questions," Daniel said. "About the firm. About Jason. We can't afford this kind of attention." Lucas sounded uneasy. "Do you think she suspects anything?" "She's a regulator," Daniel muttered. "Of course she suspects something. She doesn't like me, and she never has. But it won't matter. After tomorrow, Lara won't see much of her sister anymore." I froze. That wasn't a guess. That was a plan. They were planning to isolate Lara from me, cut her off, bury the truth, and build a wall of silence around her. It was a deliberate move. And that's when my fear turned into something else. Conviction. I wasn't going to let her marry into a lie, not without a fight. And I had no idea that the next morning would deliver exactly what I needed to expose him. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before the sun. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept racing, looping through every red flag I'd ignored, every moment I had stayed silent. Lara was hours away from tying herself legally to a man I now believed was not just arrogant, but dangerous. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Derek, my supervisor at the commission. Possible fraud at Vasquez Capital. Q3 filings flagged by the system. Offshore transfers. Anomalies confirmed. Need to talk ASAP. My stomach dropped. Derek didn't send messages like that unless it was serious. The commission's financial monitoring system had picked up something substantial, enough to trigger internal alerts, enough to justify a full investigation, and I knew exactly who would be affected. Vasquez Capital. Daniel's company, Lara's fiancé. I stepped out of the bridal suite to call Derek. "Bianca, it's looking bad," he said bluntly. "Unreported assets, fabricated growth numbers, and Cayman accounts that don't match their filings. You're not assigned to the case, but I had to warn you. This hits close to home." Close? It was about to explode in my family's lap. "Does Lara know anything?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "She has no idea." I hung up with shaking hands. At that moment, I realized I had everything I needed to stop the wedding, except the courage to break her heart. What would I even say? "Hey, sis, congrats. By the way, your dream husband might be facing federal charges. If I was wrong, I'd destroy everything. But if I was right and stayed silent, I would lose her anyway." The wedding was only hours away when I saw Jason again. He found me near the bar at the reception hall, eyes darting like he was being followed. "Bianca," he said under his breath, "we need to talk, now." We stepped out onto a quiet balcony. The city buzzed in the distance. Inside, laughter and champagne clinks echoed like a different world entirely. I wasn't hired for my investment skills, Jason began. Daniel brought me on because of my compliance background. He wanted someone who could find loopholes and look the other way. My heart pounded. What did you find? He pulled out his phone and showed me files, spreadsheets, internal emails, bank transfers. Even in the dim light, I saw numbers that didn't add up. Accounts in the Caymans, fabricated reports sent to investors. It was worse than I imagined. This is securities fraud, I whispered. Jason nodded. And possibly money laundering. I've been documenting everything, but Daniel doesn't know yet. He thinks I'm loyal. Why tell me now? Because he's leaving for Bora Bora tomorrow, he said. He told Lucas to clean house while they're away. I think he's planning to destroy evidence. Suddenly, a chill ran through me. He wasn't just going to cover his tracks. He was going to erase everything, including anyone who could expose him. That included Jason. That included me. Inside, I saw Daniel glance toward the balcony. His eyes narrowed. He saw us, I whispered. Jason handed me a drive. It's all here. I trust you'll know what to do. Back inside, my phone buzzed again. A message from Derek. Investigation greenlit. Warrant in progress. Get distance. This is happening. It was no longer suspicion. It was a ticking bomb. And Lara was standing on top of it, smiling clueless in a white dress. Back inside, everything looked perfect. On the surface. The ballroom glittered with elegance. Chandeliers shimmered above tables wrapped in silk and orchids. Waiters passed flutes of champagne to smiling guests. A string quartet played something soft and romantic in the background. And yet, I couldn't breathe. Jason had disappeared back into the crowd. I clutched the flash drive in my purse like it was a live grenade. I needed time, space, clarity. But time was the one thing I didn't have. I spotted Lara near the main table, laughing with some of Daniel's business associates. She looked radiant, cheeks flushed, eyes glowing. She had no idea the ground beneath her was about to crack open. I started walking toward her when Daniel appeared out of nowhere, cutting me off with that signature smirk. Enjoying yourself, Bianca? I hope your table near the kitchen isn't too uncomfortable. It wasn't just a dig, it was a warning. He knew. I didn't flinch. Lovely party, I replied flatly. You've spared no expense. I don't cut corners, he said. In anything. His eyes bore into mine, and I saw it clearly, the menace behind the charm. The man who smiled while planning ruin. Later, during dinner, he gave a series of exaggerated thank yous. Lara's uncle for walking her down the aisle, her old piano teacher for a letter she sent, the florist, the photographer. Everyone except me. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. Guests noticed. A few glanced at me with furrowed brows. One older woman leaned over and whispered, "Is there something going on between you and the groom?" You have no idea, I thought. The DJ announced. The beginning of the toasts. Daniel stood, glass in hand, swaying slightly from too much champagne. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a wedding. This was his performance, a carefully staged act meant to seal the lie once and for all, and I was about to ruin the show. Daniel tapped his champagne glass with a spoon. The room fell silent. Cameras rose into the air. He smiled like a king addressing his kingdom. "To my beautiful bride," he began, his voice syrupy smooth. The woman who saw the greatness in me, long before the rest of the world caught up. Lara beamed up at him, unaware of the storm gathering behind his words. He continued, weaving praise into poisoned darts. He thanked his parents, his best man, his investors, and again, left me out. Then his tone changed. "I must say," he added, scanning the room, "it's inspiring to see what can be accomplished through hard work. At Vasquez Capital, we believe in merit, in real value, not in ticking boxes or hiding behind government jobs." He looked directly at me. Some people spend their lives enforcing rules they barely understand, while the rest of us build. Scattered, nervous laughter. Everyone knew who he meant. I sat perfectly still, but my blood was boiling. And while some family members might never recognize true success, he went on, I think we can all agree it's satisfying when those who doubted you have to watch you win. He raised his glass. That's when I stood. The chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. Every head turned. I think everyone here should know, I said loud and clear, that starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Vasquez Capital will be under federal investigation for securities fraud, and I have the evidence right here. Gasps. The room froze. Daniel's glass hovered midair, the color draining from his face as if I'd slapped him. Lara's eyes widened. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Phones came out. The illusion shattered instantly, and I wasn't done yet. You're lying, Daniel choked, his voice cracking. This is pathetic, Bianca. You're just bitter, jealous. I didn't blink. The Securities Bureau doesn't launch fraud investigations over jealousy, I replied. They do it over things like falsified reports, offshore accounts, and stolen investor funds. People turned, investors, colleagues, even his own mother. Lara's face had gone ghostly white. I have everything, I added, holding up my phone. Wire transfers, fake client statements, internal emails with your name on them. Daniel laughed nervously. You think anyone's going to believe you? That's when Jason stood. I gave her the files, he said, loud enough for the whole room. I worked under Daniel. I saw the fraud happen. I documented everything. Lucas, Daniel's business partner, bolted toward the door. 2 men in suits intercepted him before he made it out. Federal agents. Someone screamed. Daniel backed away, from the table looking trapped. This is my wedding. You can't do this here. This is exactly where it needs to happen, I said, stepping toward him. In front of the people you lied to. Lara was shaking. Tell me it's not true, she whispered. Daniel, please. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Tell me those signatures aren't yours, she demanded, her voice rising. Tell me the accounts weren't real. Tell me you didn't drag me into this. Silence. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at me. Can I see the proof? I handed her my phone. She scrolled through the documents. Highlighted discrepancies, transaction logs, emails Daniel never thought would surface. These are your words, she said, her voice cracking. You lied to me, to everyone. Daniel stepped forward. I did this for us. No, she snapped. You did this for yourself. And with that, the man she thought she knew crumbled completely. The ballroom was chaos. Guests whispered in every corner. Phones were buzzing. Daniel's investors quietly slipped out, their faces pale. The illusion he'd worked so hard to build had collapsed in front of 200 witnesses. Then the doors swung open. 3 federal agents entered, led by my supervisor, Derek. He walked straight toward Daniel with quiet authority. Daniel Vasquez, he said. We have a warrant for documents linked to ongoing financial crimes. You need to come with us. You have no right, Daniel shouted. This is my wedding. We have federal authority, Derek replied calmly. And probable cause. Lara stood motionless, still holding my phone. Her white gown now felt like part of someone else's life. The bride she was an hour ago didn't exist anymore. Daniel looked at her, panicked. Lara, please, tell them they're wrong. Tell them this is all a mistake. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stared at him, until the agents took him by the arms and led him away. The doors closed behind them. Silence. Then Lara turned to me. Why didn't you tell me earlier? My throat tightened. Because I was afraid of breaking your heart. You didn't break it, she said softly. He did. She walked away from the crowd, her back straight, her steps steady. I followed. 3. Months later, we met at our favorite cafe. The leaves had turned golden. The air was crisp. Lara looked different, lighter, stronger. The annulment's final, she said, and I've started over. She had accepted a position at a financial ethics nonprofit. She was using her marketing skills to protect people instead of helping powerful men deceive them. I never would have left if you hadn't told the truth, she said. I reached for her hand. You saved yourself. I just lit the match. Sometimes, speaking the truth tears everything apart, but it also sets everything and everyone free.